about spending the money to delve deeper into a communication survey
Oh,
at Brian's evaluation.
yeah.
And I'm not sure I support that. If we're going to spend the money, I'd rather we delve deeper into our marginalized and our at-risk families and found to try to dig deeper on what kind of communications they need.
Gotcha. Yep, I just wanted to explain because it's your first time to. It's 7:01. Yep.
Are we ready, Ms. Cashmere?
Yes, you're ready to go. Feel free.
I'd like to call the order of the Milan Area Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, September 14th. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Thank you for everyone attending. Thank you if you're watching online. All board members are present except for Ms. Macchio. She is excused as is her open house for her school that she teaches at this evening. So we wish her well at that open house. We will start off with public comments. And just a reminder that this is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business, and it's not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you'll be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak up for 3 minutes, and I'll give you a 30-second warning, and I'll ask you to finish your thought when the timer goes off. Board members may question speakers, but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Is there anyone who would like to address the board?
Hello, Rachel Hobbs. So the summer, in the middle of the summer, I was like, oh, we haven't received our son's report card. And beginning of the school year came around and we still hadn't received his report card. So during open house, I went up to Mr. Shin and I asked Mr. Shin, hey, we didn't receive a report card this year. Can I get one? And he informed me that we're no longer sending out report cards. And I said, well, why is that? And it was explained to me that there's such a short period from the end of the school year to the reporting period that we can get our grades from Power School. Well, Power School is shut off the last day of school. So who knows if there's changes made. But I was offered to receive a transcript, which I gladly accepted. But my question is, communication is an issue around here. It's something that's been discussed many, many times. It was discussed in the Big Red board chat. And I wonder how many other parents are aware that report cards aren't going out anymore? Or is it just the high school? Is it all the schools? But I think that it's important for parents to know if their kids are doing well in school, and if they're not, how they can seek help, because this is a clear communication gap, and we need to close that gap. So I welcome any comments that you have on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hobbs. Thank you, Ms. Hobbs. Are there others?
Janet McFall, concerned taxpayer, stakeholder. In early August, I wrote a letter to the school board, to you, and addressed it to Andrew Sislo. The subject matter was school safety. There was then a copy made for Brian Gearbaugh, specifically the fact that, I was talking about the fact that the paraprofessionals from the high school are not given a key when they pull their IEP or special needs students to another classroom. So in the event of a shooter, they're told just to run or barricade the door. And that was at the Alice training. That question was asked, and that's what they were told. So so Brian did promise me after the August 10th meeting, when this was brought to their attention, to the attention by myself, that this would be rectified before school began. And so some of you may know I am a past employee as a para, so I have many para friends, and I am told that no, they do not have keys. They were not given keys, they were not given a plan. There was one person that said that maybe go to the cafeteria, but that is not a secure area in that type of situation. I realize the funds are not available yet, or you're going to have the audit coming up in October, and then something good could be, stable could be put in place. But what about until then? Let's make sure that the kids are safe, that the paras are safe. These are IEP and special needs kids, and they have as much value as our general education students. So the only key that the paras were given were something to do with the cafeteria here at the high school. And I was looking at the strategic plan for Milan area schools, and in the belief statement, it states that you believe in providing a safe and nurturing environment. So that would definitely apply to this. You also believe in offering relevant learning. So and when I talk about relevant learning, I'm very concerned about the books that are basically trash and X-rated that are needing to get out of the libraries. Anyway, if this strategic plan is true, then these paras would have been given a plan or a key or something to keep their students safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McFall. Are there others? All right, next up on the agenda is routine matters for approval. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 23rd, 2022.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Kiger.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 23rd, 2022. Discussion. Hearing none, it's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 23rd, 2022. Ms. Heika.
Kiger,
Yes.
Rosenleacher. Yes. Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Motion carries 6-0.
Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of August 23rd, 2022.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Kiger.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the closed session of August 23rd, 2022. Those minutes can be found in the manila folder.
Colored.
Oh, well, the manila folder inside the colored folder.
Oh, gotcha.
It's double
double
contained. Any questions or concerns?
No.
All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the closed session of August 23rd, 2022. Ms. Heika.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Kiger,
Yes.
motion carries 6-0.
If you could pass those down to Ms. Heike, I'd appreciate it. Next up, I need a motion to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses.
Moved by Pharaoh.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to approve the bills and reimbursements of expenses. Discussion. Hearing none, it's been moved and supported to approve the bills reimbursement of expenses. Ms. Heike?
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Kiger,
Yes.
motion carries 6-0.
Next up on the agenda, in support of strategic plan business of personnel and leadership, we have the following teacher appointments. I need a motion to appoint the following people to the teaching positions listed and the base salaries listed effectively. Angie Wagner for Paddock Young Fives, Lori Fluke for assignments teacher consultant, Jared Akins for a Milan Middle School teacher consultant, and Daniel Adler for a Milan High School ELA teacher.
Moved by Pharaoh.
Support by Kiger.
It's been moved and supported to appoint the following people to the teaching positions listed, the base salaries listed effective immediately. Discussion.
Welcome to Milan.
Mr. Gearbaugh, can you run us through the process that was used to post this position and interview these individuals?
Yes, so we have a defined board-approved hiring process for certified positions. It requires that we post the positions out on all of the state websites as well as our own Milan area schools website. We also more recently have been reaching out to universities and student teaching advisors, other districts, any possible candidates that we can find. We look amongst the sub-pools that we have. We post the position everywhere we can possibly get it. We then have a first-round interview process that takes place at the building and involves teachers and the administration at the building. Sometimes there's multiple steps in that process, and then the final candidates are brought to me. I interview those candidates, and we make a determination as who we would like to hire. A couple of these positions are for TCs. We are using a new law approved by the state of Michigan that allows a currently certified teacher to be emergency certified to be a special ed teacher because the number of special education teachers available in the state of Michigan is very, very low. Most districts are down numerous people. There is a law that now allows you to do that, and then the state is actually funding the first half of that person's master's degree towards getting a special education teaching certificate. So they have to be a certified teacher. We then ask for an emergency certification for special education certification. That person starts in a program. The state will pay for the first half. We are working with the ISD to use special education funds to pay for the second half. So we've gotten creative, and we're using all of the tools at our disposal to make sure that we have the supports in place for Milan area school students.
Thank you.
Mr. Gearbaugh?
Yes.
So most of the direct teacher, the Young Fives and the ELA are just replacement, like refilling, correct?
Correct.
And then the TCs, are they also stepping up to refill?
They are refilling or they are adding where our caseloads require us to have additional.
Okay, so no additional
No.
new teacher, correct?
No, correct.
And then, if I am informed correctly, we still have a seventh grade long-term sub that we're still looking for.
We have a
That's just
seventh grade
sub.
long-term English position. I do know that we've had 2 people that have been in that position and then accepted full-time teaching jobs elsewhere. I know that interviews were conducted today. I have not had a chance to talk with the middle school principal to see if we have a new long-term substitute. We basically need to cover that position until Thanksgiving.
Okay, so that's a substitute situation.
That's a substitute situation, yes.
I appreciate it.
Any other questions or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to appoint the following people to the teaching positions listed and base salaries listed effective immediately. Angie Wagner to Paddock Young Fives, Lori Fluke to Simon's teaching consultant, Jared Atkins to Milan Middle School teaching consultant, Daniel Adler to Milan High School ELA. Ms. Heike?
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes?
Heike, yes. Kiger,
Yes.
Rosenleacher.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Next up in our strategic plan area of communications and community engagement, we have a strategic plan scorecard update as included in attachment A. We reviewed this with Mr. Gearbaugh as part of his routine evaluation check-in, and he's going to walk us through that at this time.
So the scorecard is updated following each of my quarterly evaluation updates. This scorecard was part of the board pack that was put out on the website. It has also been uploaded to the strategic plan section of the milenaryschools.org website earlier today. So a couple of different ways this is updated. First, for each of the objectives under each of the strategic plan goals, they are color-coded by the Board of Education during my evaluation update. If something is green, it is determined that objective is met, but we need to continue working in order to maintain that level of support for that item. If an item is ranked as yellow, that means that the objective is on track, but we are not necessarily completed with it. And if an item is color-coded as red, it means that the objective is not met and there is still work to do throughout the school year. So you can see under each of the academic goal areas, and this is all linked to the strategic plan. So there's an academic programs, there's a goal, and then there are 3 objectives that we are working on. So you'll notice that the color coding may have changed, it may not have changed, and on the website you can go back and look at previous versions of the scorecard. The other thing that I update is as information becomes available, there is information that we were asked to include under these categories. So at this time, we still do not have the M-STEP data. We just received our data files, and we've provided that in the last couple of days to the software company that then takes those files and turns them into a piece of software that allows us to pull out all of the student growth percentiles and all of those things that we look at. So by the next update, we should be able to have those scores to you. We do have the NWEA math and ELA scores at the 3 buildings, so those have been updated, and the 3-year weighted average has been updated as well. We were able to provide the Milan and the state average for the SAT test, but we are not yet able to determine our peer schools as determined by MASB, as again, we don't have that file to be able to upload it into the software that does that for us. I was at my last update asked to include AP course data, and so I worked with Mr. Shin, and you can see for the 2021 school year, what we included were the total number of students who were taking AP courses, the total number of students that had a 3 or higher on a test that they took, and then the percent of AP students who had a 3 or higher on a given test. For 21-22, we provided that same information, and they are also now providing us with information on AP scholars and then AP scholars with honors and the number of AP capstone diplomas that we issued. We do receive other data on AP test scores, but it's never appropriate, and it's highly recommended by the state of Michigan and MDE that you never divulge information on groups of students that have less than 10. So giving any kind of information on each specific class would not be appropriate. So this is the culmination of the data that we have and will provide on the scorecard. On the next page, those numbers for the number of participants in all of those sports are still last year's numbers, as we haven't started to collect those numbers yet, and a lot of the sports haven't even started. So we will throughout the year work on updating those numbers. We did update the promotion and retention. We did have a kindergartner that was retained. So that is not 100% promotion at the kindergarten level. We are still waiting for graduation rates to come out for 2022. The data's there, and right now we have the ability to review that data and question any individual students, and that process is happening. I think that's due, it was either due at the end of last week or middle of this week. And so hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we will get graduation rate data from the state of Michigan once it's finalized, and I'll be able to update that at the next scorecard. Under learning environment.
We do, at the Big Red Board Chat, it was brought up, we need to make sure that we add robotics as part of an extracurricular activity.
Okay.
So,
I can do that.
and I believe this is the first AP capstone diploma that we've had at Milan High School. So that's quite an honor as well.
Yes, we are proud of that. In the next section, learning environment under attendance. Again, the only month that we have completed is August. There were 3 days of school in August, so I did give you those attendance percentages at each of the 4 buildings. And I was asked at the last update to make sure that we maintain the previous year's data. So I just left last year's data in, and then I put this year's data below that, and we'll just continue to fill those in as we roll throughout the year. With the discipline actions, I did the same thing, so you can see all of last year's data there, and then I began inputting this year's data. So you have the information for the 3 days of August. And then in the Communications Committee, I do not believe there were any updates as to the forms of communication. You can see the lists of methods that we use to communicate with our community. In the personnel and leadership, you can see the teachers who we have hired. All of those have been board approved. And then you can see the resignations and retirements that occurred. And then under finance and operations, we did update the scorecard to include the fund balance and fund balance above 10% numbers based on the June 30th amendment to the budget, and soon we will be able to provide those based on the audit and then start working on that as we do a new amendment in December, January on the 23 budget. So again, if there are any questions, I can answer them, and I will make sure we get robotics added. It's in the elementary schools, the Lego League. We just didn't get it in the high school.
And middle school.
And middle school. All right, I will make sure that we add that.
Just for transparency, as Mr. Sislo mentioned, there were a bunch of topics that were brought up in the Big Red Board Chat that I'll forward to you, Brian, about suggestions of adding to a few things. So.
Any other questions regarding the scorecard? Thank you, Mr. Gerbaugh. Next up, I need a motion to recommend Andy Rabenik to the Washtenaw Intermediate School District Board of Education for approval to the Washtenaw Intermediate School District Parent Advisory Committee.
Motion by Rosenleacher.
Support by Kiger.
It's been moved and supported to recommend Andrea Bennett to the Washtenaw Intermediate School District Board of Education for appointment to the Washtenaw Intermediate School District Parent Advisory Committee. Discussion? Ms. Bennett is here.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending. She was also at the Big Red Board Chat. Thank you for attending that as well. Are there any questions or concerns regarding this motion?
How often does that committee meet? Monthly. Thank you.
We appreciate Mrs. Bennick volunteering. It's been a while, actually, since Milan's had someone on that committee, and so we are excited. The way this process works is we seek volunteers. We got one. We're excited to have that. You then make a recommendation to the WISD board, and at their next meeting after receiving this recommendation, they will then vote on appointing her onto the committee, and then she can start attending those meetings as a member of the committee. So thank you, Mrs. Bennick, for your offer of time and input into that important committee.
All right, it's been moved and supported to recommend Andrea Bennett to the Washtenaw Intermediate School District Board of Education for appointment to the Washtenaw Intermediate School District Parent Advisory Committee. Ms. Heika.
Farrow,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes?
Heika, yes. Kiger,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
motion carries 6-0.
Next up, we return to public comment. And just a reminder, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It's not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you'll be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted for individuals to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak up to 3 minutes, and I'll give you a 30-second warning and ask to finish your thought when the timer goes off. Board members may question speakers, but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Is there anyone that would like to address the public? Or address the board? I apologize.
Andrea Bennick. Thank you. I look forward to being a PAC representative, assuming that the WISD committee approves membership as well. I'm excited to start, working as a liaison between the WISD and Milan area schools. I'm looking forward to learning more about the process and helping parents and staff work together and collaborate. So thank you for that. As a parent, I will say that possibly you could add into the scorecard that the Milan area schools does have a trap team for 7th and 8th grade, as well as 9th through 12th grade, as an opportunity that's not necessarily art and not necessarily sport, but an extracurricular that's an option for students who may be looking for something else to do.
Did you say trap? I'm sorry.
Trap, T-R-A-P.
That's what I thought. I just went, because when I was like, we do have a track team, but sorry.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And so I just thought that maybe that could be added as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennick. Are there others?
Hello, Rachel Hobbs again. So I was really happy about the Big Red board chat. I was late, so I missed a great portion of it. But I think it's important for the board members who weren't present that there were a lot of issues that were discussed that aren't necessarily appropriate to bring, not necessarily appropriate, but board meetings aren't necessarily the place to discuss some of those issues. So I appreciate you guys giving us an opportunity to talk. I really, truly hope that you consider what was being said and realize that you're not going to get this information in the board meetings. You're not going to get them necessarily in the grocery store or at the bank or whatever. When people hear some of these discussion, they piggyback off of each other. So it's really important that you guys are listening. I have noticed a lot of new hires. I'm curious, that seems higher than what it's been in past years. So I'm curious if the district is doing any sort of exit interviews and why we have such a high turnover rate, because that's not good for our students. We need stability. I'm trying to think, I have one other thing, but it's slipped my mind. But anyways, I appreciate tonight. It was great. It was very civil, and I think good discussions were had. So you guys hopefully enjoy them too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hobbs. Are there others?
Hello, George Elder. I was wondering if we could look into the middle school lunches, because my daughter's packing double lunch for a girl that gets free lunch, and the lines are too long. And, I'd hate to see somebody go without chow because they're not having time to get in line for the lunches. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elder.
Hi, Holly Blade. Yeah, what Rachel said, I thought the Big Red Board chat was really good. Even though there might have been some anxiety ahead of time, I think it was handled really well, and I think we all were able to have some really good discussions about things that people are concerned about and just ways that might be able to make things better for some students and parents. I know there's been an issue that's come up over the last few days about something going on with the 7th grade class with a form that went out to the students asking them if they had a nickname to use, and if so, was it something that the teacher could share with the parents? And I know that form was given to the students and then retrieved from the students before the end of class, so it wasn't a form that actually went home that parents saw. And obviously, there are some parents that I think it's reasonable that saw that and thought, well, this is concerning because that's not something that normally would have happened that we would have been aware of. And I just would like to express what the concern was. The concern, this story came up and someone contacted me from a neighboring district about what's happened in their family. And I think it's important for you guys to understand that this is how it's impacting families that are just a few miles from here. And in that district, there was an 8th grade girl who felt left out and didn't have a group, didn't have somewhere she belonged. And in that district, there was a large group of kids in 8th grade that are LGBT, and they invited her in, and but in order to really be a part of their group, she had to be a part of that. So she decided that she identified as transgender and changed her name. I'll use her name instead of her name being S. She said her name was T. And so when she was asked about it from the teachers, she told them. And then she said, my parents don't know about it. So it was held back from the parents. So it's a small town. Some of the teachers know the family and they know the parents, and also they'd never been expected to do this before. So there were some teachers who raised concerns. You know, I'm gonna have parent-teacher conferences and this person's gonna come in and you're saying that I'm calling their child T, but when they come to meet with me, I have to call their child S. And the leadership of the district said, absolutely you do. You absolutely have to do that. Whether you agree with it, whether you feel good about it, you have to lie to those parents and hide this from them. And then the principal had an issue. The principal was told that they had to do that. So from the superintendent. School board was notified of it. The school board checked with the attorneys. The attorneys said, well, you know, yeah, it's probably better you just don't tell anyone. So the school board didn't tell the family, even though they have personal relationships. This went on for 9 months until finally one of the staff members, it was too bothered. And when the mother contacted them for something else, they ended up expressing their concern about this. They went home, they talked to their daughter. They are a very loving family. They were not condemning. Their daughter expressed to them that she really liked having friends. She's not transgender. She's not considering herself that way, but she just enjoyed the fact that she really felt like she belonged to a group. So she said, but I'm not. So I mean, yeah, it's fine. I won't be called T. I'll go back to being called S. She now doesn't have that group either. So I mean, so she ended up losing all those friends. My point in saying this is that there was a counselor that retired over this because she absolutely could not stand the thought of having to be put in a position where she could not express this kind of stuff to parents, where she was withholding information. There were teachers who were caught in the middle of this, feeling like they had to do things that were against what they felt was right. There were administrators who were also told not to do that, and they didn't feel right about it either, and they were threatened with disciplinary action if they were. And all the while, this was going on in this child's life, and the parents didn't even know about it. And it wasn't because the child was in danger. It was just because there's a policy to withhold this information from parents. That's a really dangerous precedent to set, that we never, majority of parents that I've talked to, never gave any school the authority to do that and to withhold that kind of information. So this is something that's happening in people's lives that you may cross their paths even at the grocery store. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys understood that's where that concern is coming from. These are real life experiences. And this is not about people who are not accepting of people who are in the LGBT community. That's not what this is about. This is about the fact that we have concerns about teachers and other adults in the district who are complicit in keeping secrets with our children from us. And that is just I mean, if you don't see why that's a dangerous precedent, then I don't know what to tell you. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blade. Are there others?
Hello, Jamie McElvaney. I just wanted to, I don't have anything prepared, but I just wanted to share a story with that. First of all, I do agree that the Big Red Chat was great. It was great for us to all kind of just sit there and not be at each other's throats the way we always are. And it's something that I just wish Milan could set the example for the rest of the state. I mean, if we could just learn to communicate better with each other, one another. I mean, it's like I am on the extreme on this side. I'm not extreme as far as my views and that kind of thing, but I mean my stance. And the complete opposite of, let's say, you know, one of the guys over here. But the thing is we all just love the kids. The kids. Sorry. I have a love for these kids just the same as these other people do. Just because we raise our kids differently. You know, I raise my kids to try and save themselves till marriage. So I personally am not okay with the books that are in these schools. And I do have them lined up to, for the challenge. It bothers me that we have to go through such a long process to challenge these books. When there's other school board meetings where the superintendent left crying after she heard the books. There's another school board meeting where the superintendent said, get those books out of that library right now and put them in my office. Like, it's just, why do I have to fight? Why do other parents have to fight to get a book out that because they're claiming it's because we don't want LGBTQ kids in society, or we don't want black children to feel welcomed in society? That's such bold-faced lies. I don't think a black child needs to see a book where a little girl is sucking her daddy's D-I-C-K. I'm so sick of even saying these words because the shock value just doesn't even matter anymore. I mean, after the last meeting, when I read the book about the little girl going down on her mom and dad, the other side of the community went on Facebook and showed the book and said, I love this book. We're all going to read it. We're going to sit in our garden and drink tea and make sure my husband doesn't bother me. Well, good for you because you're a grown adult. You are an adult. And why should my children... I'm lucky. My kids are all grown. But I care about everybody's children. I care about children in general and the innocence in their mind that these books... Well, why does the LGBTQ child need to see that the 17-year-old boy raped his 7-year-old cousin by having him give him a blowjob and having anal sex with him? What does that have to do with us not wanting LGBTQ kids to feel welcome? That has nothing to do with it. We don't want sexually explicit pornography being shoved into our kids' brains at their school. I went to a library today that had a display that had banned all over these books. The first thing you walk in, and I said, what's this all about? She said, it's banned book week. So these books, I go, these books are banned? From where? Well, they're being challenged. I go, then why do you have banned all over it? You should have challenged all over it. Well, because it's banned book week. I go, that's a bold-faced lie, and you want kids to come in and be drawn right to this big red display. I said, do you know these books have, and I went through some of the things. These two librarians, an older lady and a younger lady, had no idea. They didn't even know that Genderqueer had pictures of blowjobs. They didn't know that Fun Home had pictures of oral sex on a woman. They didn't know that Jack of All Hearts talked about anal sex and lubing up your a-hole and switching condoms before you switched holes. They didn't even know these books existed. The librarians. We had a 20-minute conversation that was amazing, and both of us saw eye to eye. I would love to come together with these guys. I'm willing to speak with these guys and sit down and try and understand why they think it's okay that kids across Michigan have books that teach them how to have anal sex with their older cousin, and what talks about going down and sucking their daddy's dick while the white shit drips off of it. Why is that okay? It's not.
Good evening. My name is Beth Vandergrift. I live in the city of Milan, and I have 2 children who currently attend Milan area schools. First, I would like to update the board about the fundraiser that we had over the summer to raise money for our school libraries and to show our support of our library staff as they continue to endure baseless accusations of pushing pornography on our children. The rhetoric online around this has become so escalated and so derogatory toward our library staff that I fear it's become more than reckless, that it's now become dangerous. And I'm concerned that social media sites that post about this frequently, calling anyone who supports schools earning books that they personally don't approve of, quote, perverts, disgusting, groomers, pedophiles, sick, twisted, and predators, that these sites might, through this repeated misinformation and defamation, convince a follower that they should act on their inflamed anger, and I fear that someday our staff might be physically targeted. I hope it never comes to that, but it is a very real concern that I have. So, the fundraiser only ran for a few days, and I set what I had thought was a lofty goal of $500 on the morning of July 20th. By the time of the BOE meeting that evening, our community had already raised $400. A concerned parent was streaming the meeting from home and saw the public comments, and they decided right then to donate $100 during the meeting, which caused us to reach our goal in less than 12 hours. Over the next few days, we received even more donations, and after fees, I'm happy to report that I was able to deliver a check for $660.01 directly to the district librarian for the library staff to use in any way they like with no strings attached. It makes my heart full to know that we have such an amazing, dynamic, and supportive community here in Milan, and that so many community members are willing to show up to support our schools. I'm very proud to be a part of Milan right now, and I am grateful to everyone who donated, shared, and sent messages of support. Regarding that Facebook post by a public figure targeting the 7th grade science teacher for passing out a form in which the teacher inquired what name they'd like to use and asked if it was okay to use that name in front of their parents, this teacher is following State of Michigan BOE guidelines issued in 2016, and I personally am so happy that they are. I think any kid should be able to be called by whatever name or nickname makes them comfortable, but this is especially important for our LGBTQ kids. As these guidelines have been in place for 6 years now, statewide, which is why I'm surprised that anyone was surprised by them, these guidelines advise teachers to ask if it's okay with the child to use the child's preferred name around the parents. This is not anything new. Other teachers have done this before, as they should, both in our district and all across the state, according to these well-established guidelines. However, not long ago, another MAS teacher asked her students for their preferred pronouns, and it blew up into this crazy controversy that I wish could somehow have been quelled by a statement of support of the teacher by the board or the superintendent's office. I don't know what you're allowed to say or how your hands are tied when it comes to public comments, but these teachers are following BOE state guidelines, and I think they should be applauded for doing their jobs. This accusation of a teacher encouraging students to keep secrets from their parents, which is not what this is at all, and the comments under that Facebook post that of course quickly went to grooming, frustrates me. I don't think it's responsible of a public figure to allow that commentary to continue. I wish it hadn't been encouraged, but it was, it happened, it's out there. So now I would hope that either the board or the superintendent's office could issue a statement explaining that asking for names and pronouns are well-established guidelines issued by the state BOE, and that our district supports our teachers who are following these guidelines. I appreciate all of these teachers who are looking out for all of our kids and who are showing respect for our LGBTQ students and are doing their best in an understaffed district like all the area districts in an uncertain world emerging from a pandemic. We need to stand up for our teachers before we lose them all, and I really hope that the board can find some way to communicate to families that this isn't rogue behavior by an activist teacher, that these are simply well-established state guidelines, and I hope that the board and or the superintendent's office can continue to encourage teachers to use these practices because they make a world of difference to our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vandergriff. Are there others?
Janet McFall. She didn't show you the book. It was called Push. Why are we putting trash and smut in front of education? Come on. Educators, stay with education and think first about the children, not the smut that's in these books. And teachers are asking for information. about children and offering to keep secrets from their parents, wrong. That is grooming. That is, I'm just sick, and my heart is sick. I respect you guys, but you know, there's just a lot to be said.
Thank you, Ms. McFall.
Ashley St. Clair. I'm one of the parents, one of the community members, who sat in my garden sipping tea, asking my husband not to bother me so that I could read this smut book. Pornography is meant to turn somebody on. You know it when you see it. And I'm sorry, I read this entire book, and this book is heartbreaking. And the things that this little girl had to go through in her life are heartbreaking. But if you read a part of a book, and mind you, when the parts of this book are being read, those are sentences randomly throughout the book of this little girl having horrible memories of growing up and what she had to go through. But if you read a part of a story where a little girl is being sexually abused by her father and you think that someone is being turned on by it, you are sick and there is something wrong with you if that's what you get from reading this book. This book is one of the most heartbreaking but powerful books I have ever read. I am a white woman. I went to school here in Milan, which has been consistently 98% white my entire life. I had no idea the things that people had to go through who didn't get to grow up as privileged as we are. You read the book and her spelling is wrong, and the way that she phrases things is wrong in the beginning because she is illiterate and she can't read and she can't write, and she does everything she can to get into good schools and better schools, schools that are meant to help teenage girls who can't read and can't write. And she has a child, and she's doing everything she can to make herself better so that she can have a better life, to give her kids a better life. And if you think that that story is pornography, then there's something wrong with you. And please actually read the book and stop just listening to the excerpts that are taken from it and take the time. It took me less than a day to read this book. And when Mrs. McIlvaney came up here and she was reading the descriptions of these books and these excerpts, I felt ill, and that's why I wanted to read them, because I wanted to know the basis behind what these stories are. So if you're going to come up here and say that this book about this girl who brought herself up when she was brought down by her family and forgotten about her schools and forgotten about her community and had to walk to school and had to get change enough to be able to get food and needed to borrow a pencil from somebody so that she could go to school and get herself an education to become a better person, read the book.
Thank you, Ms. Sinclair. Are there others? Please, order. All right. Next item of business is superintendent comments. Mr. Dearbaugh.
Thank you. Several things to share this evening. I've been sharing this for months, but we want to remind everyone that the program that provided free lunches for all students in the previous school year is now no longer in place. Messages were sent out to families about how to apply for free and reduced lunch. We do urge any family that feels that they qualify for free or reduced lunch to fill out the application that's available at milanareaschools.org. It will get reviewed, and then will get approved if it meets the standards. Those standards were included in the email message that went out to the community, and they are available on our website. The district also wants to remind all community members that we offer a free preschool program to eligible families. Eligibility for the Great Start Readiness Program requires that families' incomes be below 250% of the federal poverty line. That is a criteria set by the state of Michigan. If you have any specific questions about this program or our other early childhood programs, please feel free to contact Miss Lisa Mellinger at 734-439-5159. It seems like it's been a while since we've been together at a board meeting. Actually, the last board meeting was prior to the start of school. So it sounds a little weird now, but the first week of school was an amazing week. The facilities were cleaned and ready to go. Transportation, drop-off, pickup went very smoothly. Food service was up and running. Most importantly, it was great to see life back in the hallways of the buildings. Teachers were teaching, students were learning. Our staff and students did an amazing job to make the first week a huge success. Prior to the start of school, we had 3 days of opening professional development. We opened on Tuesday with a reintroduction of the strategic plan and a huge thank you to our staff for their dedication throughout the pandemic. On Tuesday and on the remainder of Tuesday and Wednesday, the buildings had their own professional development in their schools. And on Thursday, we had a full day of trauma-informed instruction provided by Dr. James Henry. The teachers and paraprofessionals attended that session. I had several folks approach me and say that it's some of the best professional development they have attended. We will continue to work with Dr. James Henry and have him involved in guiding our committee that is providing training to all of our staff on trauma-informed instruction. Since our last board meeting, all 4 buildings had highly successful open houses. The principals reported that they had some of the largest turnout that they've had in years, and they also commented on the positive vibes of the students and parents in the hallways. The Milan Area Schools Board of Education Meet the Candidate Forum hosted by the Milan Area Chamber is scheduled for 7 p.m. on Thursday, September 29th here in this theater. The forum will also be streamed and made available on the school board YouTube channel. This is the community's chance to meet and hear the candidates speak about important state and district educationally related topics. The candidates are George Elder IV, Sarah Murray, Murphy Payer, and Betty Rosenleacher. Election day is Tuesday, November 8th, and the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. At the forum, each candidate will respond to 5 prepared questions in a speech format. Following that, those speeches on the prepared questions, the candidates will answer questions collected from the community prior to the event. If you would like to submit a question, you can visit the current events section of milanareaschools.org, and there is a link to a Google form that will allow you to submit a question to the Chamber of Commerce. During the 2021 and 21-22 school years, Milan Area Schools, like every other district in the state, was operating under an extended continuity of learning plan. The ARP ESSER 3 Act requires each district to now have a return to in-person instruction and continuity of services plan. The district has developed a draft version of that plan, and we will be seeking public input on that plan. This plan is required even though Milan Area Schools has been providing in-person instruction for over a year. The components of the plan must encompass all of the things that are dictated by the Act. However, the content of the plan is developed by the district and must be considered by the public, and we have to provide the public with the right to provide feedback. The district will be hosting a community Zoom session on Monday, September 26th at 6 p.m. Information about the Zoom session is available in the current events section of milanareaschools.org. In regards to the school safety and the doors at the high school principal and I, prior to the start of the school year, did tour the building, determined which rooms need to be looked at. We had a locksmith in. It ended up being more than what the locksmith anticipated. We are currently awaiting quotes for different methods of addressing that, and as soon as we get those quotes, we will move forward. This is not something we are waiting until the funding for school safety is released by the state. This is something that we will address as soon as we get an answer from the locksmith on the best way to proceed. A pupil count update. I've been working with the building offices to begin the process of determining our pupil count. The first of the 2 official pupil count days is October 5th. At this time, it does appear that our unofficial numbers are very close to the district's projection of 1,900 students that was used for the preliminary budget. This will be good news as we work on our upcoming budget revision in November and December. I plan to have a more detailed update at the next board meeting regarding our pupil counts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Mr. McMahon.
Yep, good evening. I just have one comment, and that's to share with you our updated benchmark assessment goals. I have a copy in front of you, and they will be posted on our transparency page of our website. This is a requirement through some federal funding that we are required to provide benchmark assessments. This is something that Milan's been doing for a long time before the ESSER funds started and made it a requirement. In fact, the requirement is that you do a benchmark assessment twice per year, once at the beginning of the first 9 weeks, and then once at mid-year, and then we provide an update. It's by like the first meeting in February and then by the last meeting in June. But we've been doing that for a long time, so we're just following some guidelines to make it to be in compliance with the law. But there's our goals. As we get our scores in, we'll do a pre and post. So the students are already testing. We started NWA this week. And then they'll take the second round, the winner, in the, starting in January, and then we'll, in February, give you an update. And it's all based on growth. So you have your goals there in front of you. It follows the same template as last year.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. Next up is board member comments.
Mr. Sislo.
Ms. Freight.
Thank you. I just wanted to, on a happy note, to give a shout out to all of our academics, our athletes this year. So far, we've had some great successes. I know our equestrian team has done really well, and I'm just really proud of our students that go out and represent our district. I also want to thank the community for coming out to the Big Red Board Chat. It was very well attended. It was very nice to talk with you and have the two-way communication and to gain insight from you. I appreciate what you were willing to tell us and look forward to being able to continue that type of discussions and to take back the feedback and you coming out and sharing your evening with us. I also want to thank Mr. Girbaugh for giving me the trauma day, the PD event that we went to. I attended that the entire day. It was here. It was invaluable. The gentleman was up here and he spoke with us and interacted with all of us, and I think the staff walked away with a great deal of information and guidance. One of the things I found very profound is the gentleman that we had the trauma, that did the, I can't remember his name, Dr.
James Henry.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. One of the things, he worked with Oxford schools here in Michigan very closely. He's been over there, we've been with them for over 16 different meetings with the administration, with the students and so forth. And one of the things that he said when he met with them is he walked in and asked them, why Oxford strong? Why strong? That it was okay to admit that you are weak. That it is okay to admit you have disagreements and that you will not go back to a normal. To think that you're going to just be strong and get over it doesn't really give way and give credit to the moment that you were weak and that you're still going to be weak and that it is okay to be weak and to reach out when you need that help and to find it. And I found that a very profound statement and would like to think that, and we mentioned it in the board our Big Red Chats, some of the things that we present to you in the scorecard don't look good. Our scores don't look good. Our suspensions don't look good. We are trying desperately hard to be very transparent with that, admit that, and fix it. Is there going to be an instantaneous fix? Probably not. Nothing goes that well. Nothing gets that quick. And we have to work with a multitude of different dynamics. But I think it's important that we admit that we are weak, but we are focused, and we are determined to do the best that we possibly can with your support moving forward. So I thank you for coming out tonight to the Big Red Board Chats. I look forward to even more Big Red Board Chats, and I appreciate our students and our community working together with us. Thank you, Mr. Sislo.
Thank you, Ms. Freight. Others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Mr. Farrow.
So I do have a finance update. Before I give the finance update, I did want to address Ms. McIlvaney's comments at the podium. So I'm not sure that I've met Ms. McIlvaney, but to me, your presence at the microphone is a bit different than on your website, Let Them Play. In my opinion, you have an aggressive following. And I wouldn't say that everything on your website, Facebook page, whatever, is respectful, like you're asking at the podium for everyone to be respectful. I couldn't agree more. But again, in my opinion, your presence at the microphone is far different than what we read online. I also wanted to just comment on the fact that, in my opinion, for those that don't know, Let Them Play is this in my opinion, this group that got started as a way to combat the state of Michigan COVID restrictions. In my opinion, it seems to have shifted to let them pray, which is has nothing. The group doesn't seem to have anything to do with fighting COVID restrictions. In fact, it appears that the focus has changed to this false narrative that books in our library are pornographic and that certain books are intended to indoctrinate or groom students. The books and the short verses that you quote are not required reading. The parents are getting parental choice. The students are getting student choice on what they want to read and not read, just like they have the ability to read things on their cellular phone, just like they have the ability to get on their laptop computers. If you want to manage what they read and not read, do that as a parent. Don't have them check out the books that you don't support. And these books that you have quoted, I doubt very much that you've read all of them from the first page into the last page. So I'm going to just move on. By the way, for those interested, some of these books have been in our library since 2017, 2019. To date, there's not been one single book challenge on any of these books that some of these folks are coming to the microphone speaking about. With regard to finance, the first audit payment to Raymond Robson for the audit has been made and the audit is nearing completion. The final payment will be made when the audit is finalized. A first reading of the financial audit will be presented during the October 12th board meeting. For fiscal year 22, the district was fairly close on anticipated revenue. Our state revenue was lower than budgeted. Currently, it's in excess of $300,000. The bulk of this is due to at-risk grant funds that were received but not utilized. You'll see that this is predominantly offset in expense under added needs. On the expense side, it appears the district will fare better than projected in terms of overall spend against our fund balance. The audit has not been finalized, but we anticipate depleting the fund balance by approximately $1.1 million. Also, at the moment, it appears costs associated with operations, maintenance, and transportation will be better than budgeted. For fiscal year 23, costs associated with operations, maintenance, and transportation could change based on inflation and other factors. As a reminder, we will be considering 23 budget revisions in the month of November or December. Also, I just want to remind the community about the candidate forum, which is September 29th at 7 p.m. here at the high school. Also at the middle school, Ms. Jasper and Mr. Sandberg have scheduled a coffee with principals at 8:45 in the middle school conference room. If you're interested, please RSVP. Finally, the high school recently disseminated an email about the Sunshine Club. This group is seeking donations via Sign Up Genius. The Sign Up Genius consists of the top requested items by teachers, students, counselors, social workers, paraprofessionals, and secretaries. Some of the items being requested would not be what you expect. While some items might not be typical supplies listed, the items requested are intended to build the high school culture and morale. If you have any interest in donating, please contact the high school. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow.
Mr. Sislo, may I one
Sure.
thing I forgot, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Jan.
for sure.
Tom reminded me, I was asked, as me and Mrs. Rosenleach are the representatives for Simons, to remind everyone that Simons is currently doing a fantastic fall fundraiser. It'll go to September 29th. You can donate, or they'll take your money in any form. You feel free to bring them, cash, check, PayPal, or however. It's all being ran specifically through our Simons PTO, so no outside agency is doing anything. If you have any need to find any more information, please contact the Simons School, and they will be happy to help you guide them in the fundraiser. It goes with the Day of Awesome. They did a Day of Awesome last year, and all of our kids 3 through 5 had a fantastic time. So we'd appreciate your support. Sorry, Jan.
No, thank you to
Thank you.
Simon's PTO and Miss Jody Franklin. She was at the Big Red Board chat, so we appreciate her passing that on to you.
Sorry, I forgot.
Are there others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Rosenleacher.
I would also like to thank the community who came out today for our Big Red Board chat. That was my first time at a Big Red Board chat, and it was very insightful, it was very respectful, and I really appreciated the insights that we learned during that time together today. So thank you to everyone who was there.
Thank you. Are there others?
Just want to give another thank you to Mrs. Bennick for volunteering her time to represent our district. Thank you.
For sure, thank you. I'll echo the Big Red Board chat. I appreciate the community coming out. We did have a large turnout, which was great. We weren't able to get through the entire strategic plan, but we did have a lot of good dialogue back and forth, which I thought was very valuable. Most of the themes were around school security, communication, and then potentially some peer-to-peer opportunities that we can nurture within the school, which relates well to the mission statement involving community of learners. So definitely look forward to those. I thank Mrs. Powell for being present and helping us along with that, as well as Avery. We did have a student in participation, which was helpful in regards to some of the things that were discussed. So I do look forward to that, to those, to having those in the future.
Mr. Sislo.
Ms. Heika.
First, I want to welcome our new staff members that we approved tonight. Welcome to the district, and I look forward to the great things you're going to bring to the district. I want to thank everyone who attended the Big Red Board chats tonight. As you know, only 3 board members at a time can attend, so I wasn't there for that reason. But I appreciate all the community members that came, and I look forward to a rundown of the topics that were brought to everyone's attention. I want to congratulate the girls' swim team. They beat the Dexter swim team last night pretty heartedly, and so it was a great win for them. The girls were all fired up, and it was just nice to see. The swim club came to support them. Chelsea was there also, so there were just a lot of people in the pool, a lot of cheering, a lot of teenage girls supporting each other, cheering each other on, and helping each other when they did well, and helping each other when they didn't do quite as well as they had hoped. And so it was just nice to see all of those kids, even kids from other teams, supporting each other and being there, especially girls, because I know that especially high school and middle school, that can be a problem sometimes. So I was very proud of all of them. I agree that we need to have some appropriate discussions about many of the issues that our district faces. That's really hard to do when you, as someone who disagrees with a position, is labeled a pervert, sick, gross, and a groomer. I've made it very public. I've read all of the books that were brought up. I read them with the exception of one, and I keep meaning to pick that up. With the exception of one, I've read them all. And I read them because I thought it was very important to understand the context of everything that was going on. And I still encourage the community to read these books from cover to cover. And after reading them, I would agree that I'm not sure why that's funny, but I would agree that my freshman is not emotionally ready to read Push. She isn't. But that's why, as a mother, we talk about the books that she's reading. I monitor the things that they're watching, the books that they're reading, the books they're checking out from the school, because I know my child, and I have that relationship with all 3 of them, that we have those conversations. I do believe she's emotionally ready to read All Boys Aren't Blue and Identical. But we would still have conversations about the content of those books. In the prelude to All Boys Aren't Blue, the author states, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he didn't think he was old enough and he didn't have enough life experience to write a memoir. But people encouraged him to write the memoir. And he said that eventually he wrote the memoir because he had wished that there had been a book as he was growing up that he could have read where he would have seen himself in that book. And while the book does recount an instance of where he is sexually abused by an older cousin, some of the portions that were read out loud and were mentioned again today are separate events that are pushed all together. And while he recounts that instance of abuse, he talks about it much later, and he talks about it in the context of how he dealt with that as an adult, and how he, through therapy and learning about himself, was able to forgive that cousin because he realized that cousin had probably also been abused. He understood there now as an adult that there was a cycle of abuse and that it needed to be talked about so that you could break the cycle. And that's why he wrote the book. And the vast majority of the book, those are two very small sections of a larger context. And the larger context of that book is about the importance of family, the importance of forgiveness, the importance of being who you are, and how you persevere through trauma. And I think those are all very important lessons that we want to send to our students. So I am going to make the personal parental choice that if my daughter, my high schoolers, want to read All Boys Aren't Blue, I will let them. If you have a different choice, that's okay. But that doesn't make me a groomer. It doesn't make me a pervert. It just means that maybe my child may be in a different position than your child, and that's all okay. But we can't have these conversations if there's going to be name calling on either side. We can't do that and have a good, productive conversation. So I think that's where we have to start. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Ika. Any other comments, concerns? Meeting's adjourned at 8:12.